Hello there, I'm Daniel O'Donnell and you're listening to the Ireland Podcast.
Hello, welcome to the Ireland Podcast. This is Fender Jackson. The time is 1:18 p.m. on Wednesday the 17th of June 2026. I am in County Derry with this person. Who are you and what do you do?
I'm John Heron. I'm retired. I was a builder with 6 brothers which worked together. And now I think most of us are retired now.
So, for transparency, you're my father, and it's not about your business that I'm actually interviewing you today. It's about your love for the Irish language.
Yes.
So, I've been sent some questions from the Irish News to ask you, and we can use that as a foundation for the conversation. Okay. So, how old were you when you first went, well, first of all, how old are you? And then second of all, how old were you when you first went to the Gaeltacht?
I'm almost 87. I never thought I'd reach this length. And I never went to Gaeltacht as a young fella at all. It was in my 30s before I went to the Gaeltacht. We had Irish classes in Immersion and youngsters went to them, and 4 or 5 of the brothers and sisters went to the Gaeltacht, and I never got an exam to go.
You studied at Immersion?
Yeah.
And how did you fare in that class?
Well, I fared all right, but wasn't good enough. Just so then I had to give it up and started working. And after I married Claudia, I lived in Claudia, and Johnny Burke was the Irish man there, and he bought Cumber House. The rest of us agreed with it. And he felt we should start Irish classes. So I didn't see much sense in it, but I went along. It was all right because I still had a sort of graph for the Irish language. And there was a fella, man, Seán Gallagher, who spent 5 years.
Well, just before you get off Cumber House, so how did Johnny have the money to buy Cumber House?
He didn't have the money. we had to go out and sell tickets for it.
So how did you just sell tickets for raffles and stuff?
Yeah.
How much was it?
Oh, well, it was £9,500.
And what year was that?
That was 73, I think.
The year I was born.
Yeah, right. That was it. So we sold tickets, we ran dinners, and we ran Céilís, and we ran all sorts of fundraising things together. And we paid $9,500. I got Alf Murray to come down to look at it. He couldn't go to it, but he looked at it from the upper road, which we call the upper road, and he had to see it. And he said it was a good buy. I said, what do you think it's worth? He said, I think it's worth about 15,000.
Right.
We had no notion to pay, that's what
Did you get a loan from the bank then to pay?
Oh, I had it.
And how did you even convince them to lend it to you?
Oh, Jack Foley signed for it. He was a local chemist, and Johnny's friend of him. But Johnny could take money off his own. He could. And,
why is that? Because he's ruthless?
No, he's just a good businessman. Although we knew with this in business.
He's a cobbler.
He's a cobbler. He sold shoes, and his brother Tommy fixed shoes. So that's how he made the living. But selling shoes wasn't important to him.
Right.
At all.
So explain what Cumber House is.
Cumber House is the estate of Colonel Hitch Brown Leckie, who was the landlord for around Claudia, and he had a big country house, and lots of servants worked. Johnny's mother worked in the basement of it, and a good few people around Claudia got employment from it. And when we bought it,
so you're saying whenever we bought it, is that GAA then?
The GAA bought it, yes.
GAA Claudia?
GAA
So it belongs to them?
Yeah, it belongs to them still.
Right.
And we paid off the debt.
Aye.
And we then started to run Céilís on it. And Johnny was the organiser of that as well. I taught them the dancing because I was a bit of an Irish dancer. I just knew the steps really. That's about it. And
where'd you learn them?
I learned them in Ballinascreen with Seamus Kerrigan, Master Kerrigan, as they were called. He was from Castle Fun, and he was a manager in Burns' factory. And he taught Irish dancing as well. He taught well. He taught Hugh McKenna, a world champion. And he taught a good few Ulster champions and All Ireland champions. But I don't know if he taught anybody else all that Hugh to be a world champion now. But he was very good, very strict. And from him that I learned. And he actually took me one time to teach Ballinascreen for the score. Because he taught Noma as well, and he was king in Noma, so he was taking Noma, and I says I wouldn't be good enough for Ballinascreen. Oh, he says I'll stop with you now and again, and that's all right. So,
what age were you then?
I was about 30.
Okay.
Yeah, and he called the first day he called. I was there, and he called the whole class together, and he says, "This is Mr. Heron, one of the few people in Ballinascreen who knows who taught him." So he was full of praise for me, but I wasn't half as good as he was. Although we won.
We taught him, so you're saying that he learned from you?
Oh no! I taught his class.
Oh, okay.
His class, you see, and we entered the score. And that's the culture thing for Irish dancing and singing and poetry and all sorts of things like that. And we won the County Derry championship. Now, I don't think we were the best. There was a man from Donegal. He was a Derry man, actually. And himself and Seán Gallagher were big friends, and himself and Kerrigan were big friends. But I thought he was better than his team was better than ours. He was a better teacher, I thought. But we won anyway, and we went to the Ulster final, and we were beat by Money Glass. Now, Cathal Boyd was a man of about, at that time, he'd have been between 60 and 70, very old for doing Irish dancing, and they won it. And I'm convinced it's because of Cathal Boyd that they got him.
A sympathy vote?
A sympathy vote, yeah.
Aye.
So, but we shouldn't have been there in the first place. So I was happy enough with it. And Kerrigan gave us a dinner afterwards. And
but do you think you should have won?
Oh, we were better than...
So why do you say you shouldn't have been there?
We shouldn't have been there because we should have beaten in the county championship.
Why? So because the team was better than you?
The team in Gleann was better than us.
Aye. So they should have won the whole thing, you think?
Yeah.
Aye. Interesting. Carry on.
So that was sort of how I got into it. So then I lived in Clodagh at the time, and Johnny asked me would I teach Irish dancing there. So I taught Irish dancing, and then he said we would have Irish music and Irish conversations, teaching Irish, and I would take a class after that. And I said, we've nobody to teach Irish. Oh, he says, we'll get somebody. So he knew a fella, Seán Gallagher. I thought he was a bit of mouth the first time I heard him, because we were at a function in Dungiven, and Anne Francie Brawley had organised it.
Joe Brawley's parents.
Joe Brawley's parents, yes. And when Anne and Francie were speaking, this boy was talking over them.
Seán Gallagher.
Aye. He was tight.
Aye.
He was talking over
Drunk.
them.
Aye.
Drunk. I didn't want to hear him at all. And when Johnny mentioned to him, I didn't agree with it at all. But anyway, he got him. And he came out in the bus every Monday evening. And I'd collect him at the hotel in Clodagh. It was a Protestant hotel, but Gallagher didn't care as long as he could drink. So I left him there and took him round to Cumber. We had a drink as well at Cumber, you see. And he did the class first, and then he went to the bar because I was taking a dancing class. And then when the night finished...
So Sharon was teaching you Gaelic language at that point?
That's right.
Right, so, okay.
Although I was very poor at it, indeed. And then I took him home or else Johnny took him home. Sort of night, but sometimes we went together, in fact, and we had a good time. And
so you warmed to Seán then?
Oh, I warmed to Seán. I thought he was a great man altogether. He told me, he spent 5 years with Her Majesty in Crumlin Road. The best 5 years of his life. I says, I wouldn't count 5 years in Crumlin Road the best 5 years of my life. Well, he says, I got teaching Gaelic language. And he says, you know, I really had a captive audience.
What was he in for?
He blew up the train station in Derry.
So he was in the area?
Oh, he was in the area, aye. And
did he resign after that or retire?
Well, I don't really know now. He was still that way inclined, all right.
Aye. And was he, did he kill people, do you know?
No, he never killed anybody, no, never. At least not that he knew of, anyway.
Right. So you had a respect for the guy?
I had a big respect for him, yeah.
Through the language mostly?
Through the language more than I had, because he was doing it free of charge. Never charged a penny.
In Cumber House?
In Cumber House. And that went on for, I would say, 10 years.
Aye.
Never got a penny.
Wow.
He then died at the end of that time, and he got a big funeral from Sinn Féin. He was the original Sinn Féin. The present Sinn Féin, he had no time for it all.
Right.
None. And he could have been unionist for that matter. They just had no time for them, indeed.
Do you think that Seán Gallagher brought your language, knowledge of Irish language, to an acceptable level where you could be in a conversation?
Yes, he did, indeed. It still wasn't great, but it's good enough. It's like the Indian, you buy a nice tie. That was my sort of, the level I was at. And then, at the end of that time...
just to reference that, you were talking about, you used to run a cinema, and the Indian guys used to come around and use the cinema. What year was that?
That was 1950s.
1950s, so the Indians from Northern Ireland.
All over Northern Ireland. Busloads came.
Came to Draperstown.
Yes.
And screened their Bollywood movies.
Yes. In fact, I remember going on holidays and I was sitting beside an Indian woman, and I just spoke to her because, and I asked her where she was from. She was from Derry, and she asked me where I was from. I said, Draperstown, you not know anything about it? Oh yes, she says, I was at the pictures in Draperstown. So,
and you were saying that, because I was asking what did these people do for a living? Were they doctors? And you explained that they sold ties.
They sold clothes. And a tie was an easy thing to sell, I think. And
I mean, that's another sidebar conversation. Yeah. So, but it's fascinating that you had, you know, people from all around the north going to Draperstown to watch movies in your picture house. Back to, I was asking you about Seán Gallagher bringing you up to a level where you felt that you were good enough for a conversation.
Well, I wasn't good enough, but I felt I was. And I got through on it, and people understood me. That's what I wanted, all right. So then I was friendly with a boy, Francie Humphrey from Mahra. They had a Killie band.
Francie Frank?
Francie Frank. Green Cross Killie band.
He plays the box.
And they played the box. And he was in the Green Cross Killie band, and he was in the Jim Lunn Killie band. Jim Lunn was from Balahi. No, this Irish at all. He was a football referee. So Francie talked about the Gaeltacht, and he explained to me what it was. They were going to Donegal for a week and staying there. And the Gaeltacht he was going to go to was Rossgill. And I knew Rossgill all right. That was Downings. And I knew that people went to it all right. And I said, I'll go surely. So then, a month or two later, I discovered that there was classes in a place called Gleann Cholm Cille in the south of Donegal too.
So we can work this out because carry on. We'll work out the date.
I mentioned to Francie, but Francie had already booked Rossgill. So I said, right, we'll go to this year, and if this year's not a great one, we'll go to the other place next year. So that's what we did do. We went to Rossgill. What a good time, all right. Father Jack Gallagher was the head man there. and we had a good week, all right.
Now I have to drill you. This is where the questions come in, because I have to drill you about your first experience.
Well, Roskill was my first experience.
Aye. So,
I enjoyed it.
what were you most excited or nervous about before going?
Well, I wouldn't be nervous about anything, really. Wee bit worried about it, but well, it was a good place, except that the classes started in the morning and finished at 3 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And after 3 o'clock, you heard no Irish language at all.
Right.
You went to the hotel, you went to the club, and no matter where you went, everybody was speaking English.
Right.
And I didn't want this at all. I wanted someone better than this.
Right.
Because I knew if I didn't use it, I would lose it.
Uh-huh. So, just to keep on the questions. So, what were you most excited or nervous about before going? Can you think of that?
I was excited about it, about the Irish language.
So you're mostly excited about learning the Irish language?
Yeah.
Aye. And what else?
Well, there was Céilís as well, every evening, so we did that as well. I took the Céilís.
So you knew that there was going to be Céilís?
No, I didn't know till we went there. Father Jack taught me into teaching it.
Oh, okay.
So I taught.
So he was thinking, we'll get this here going, and who can teach it?
Yeah.
Or he was chatting to you, and then you said you taught Céilís.
He knew Johnny Burke and knew him well, and he knew through Johnny that I had taught it in Claudy. So that was enough for him. So, and on the last evening, there was nobody else allowed into our place. We were in the hotel in the evening, and there was nobody allowed in there in the evening because we were going to have a Céilí. And I called it out in Irish as well. And Father Jack wouldn't let anybody else in. And on the last evening, there was a busload of Germans arrived. And he invited them in, which really surprised me because he was really anti all this thing. And he got up to speak, and he spoke completely welcoming them, completely in German.
Wow.
It was to show how much Germany had.
Oh.
I think.
Wunderbar.
Yeah. So we had a good evening, and the Germans took part in the Céilí dancing as well.
Class.
So we had a good time. So then, when I came home, we were happy enough.
Who was playing the music then? Or was it tapes?
There was boys on the course playing the music.
Oh, class.
Yeah.
So, back to the questions. Can you remember your first day?
The first day at the
Gaeltacht?
Oh, I do, yeah, indeed.
Tell us about it.
Johnny and me, or Francie and me, were in the top class. And I'm very proud of that because I knew I shouldn't be anywhere near that. Francie was worse than me at that time. He ended up better than me.
And how many years had you been learning at this point?
No years.
No, but you had been learning Cumber.
I'd learned about 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
And
how often were you learning it? Every week?
Every week, yeah.
And did you do homework?
Well, I tried a bit, but didn't do very much now. Homework never was much good to me.
You're getting better in your old age.
Hope so.
Did you take your inhaler yet?
Oh, I took inhaler.
Okay, so what was well, you discussed a wee bit about what the typical day was like. Talk a wee bit more.
Well, we started class in the morning, and 10 o'clock we started at, and we stopped for a cup of tea at 11 o'clock, and then it restarted again at 11:30, and went to 1 o'clock. Then we stopped for an hour for lunch, and then we started again and went on to 3 o'clock, and that was it.
Class.
That was it finished.
But that was it for the until you had the
things that happened there. Professor Devlin was from Marhavelt, a friendly with Denny and that, and he was teaching a class.
Denny McKeever,
yeah. And we did that year, and Francie himself started meeting up with each other to speak Irish, and.
In Donegal or?
Oh no! I'd go out to him, or he'd come up to me.
To each other's houses.
Yeah.
Aye.
And sat and chatting just, and we got on all right out. And through that time, we talked about next year what we do. Would we go back to Roskill? I liked Roskill now, and Francis said we should try the other place and compare them. So we went to the other place, which was Gleann Cholm Cille, and I met the organiser, Liam Cunningham, Liam Ó Cuinneagáin, and he said, "Can you matatu?" I said, "Tammy, come here. Right, you're the top class." So
I just worked it out because I think it was 1984 whenever you first went to
I think it
Gleann
was, yeah.
Yeah.
84. And he picked us just by speaking to us. If you couldn't answer him at all, he put you somewhere in the middle or the bottom maybe. But I was the top class.
Were you nervous about going to
I was nervous there because
Why?
I thought this was going to be tough.
Why did you think it was going to be tough?
Because he spoke to Irish to me. Father Jack spoke English to me all the time.
So Liam Cunningham, did you meet him before the first day of the Gaeltacht?
No.
So whenever you went there,
we all in the big hall,
Aye.
and he was arranging who would go where. And he spoke to you, right, you're the top class, you're in class level, you're level 2, you're in level 3.
all in Asgaeilge.
Asgaeilge.
Yeah.
So the thing is, it was him was teaching us, and he wouldn't speak any English at all.
Aye.
All Gaelic.
So I did an interview with Liam Cunningham, and he was talking about, I think he studied psychology in university, and he was talking about the relationship between psychology and learning a language, and he favours the immersive technique.
Yeah.
In that.
Oh, he called it immersion. I thought it was drowning.
So you're nervous. Were you nervous before you went there, or were you nervous after having met him?
After I met him, I was nervous.
Yes. What about before you went there?
Oh, before I didn't think anything of it at all. I thought it'd be another Roskildeist.
Aye.
So, but it wasn't. I spoke to him in English, and he Gaelically the whole.
Right. And what was a typical day like in Gleann Cholm Cille?
Gleann Cholm Cille started at 10, and the old school, and that went from 10 to 11. And then it took about 15 minutes for tea break, and then it went to 1 o'clock, and then started again at 2 o'clock, and finished at 5. So I was more than happy with that, I thought, because it was more time learning.
Yes.
And he spent a day with us, teaching us he said to somebody, Last and Solace, and he didn't know what he was saying, so he had over, he says, Mohan Solace. So the boy caught on, and he turned off the light. He says, Last and Solace ish. So he poured on, and we spent a whole morning from 15:15, from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock. Nothing else, only Last and Solace, Mohan Solace. That's all we did. The only thing we did.
It reminds me of the Karate Kid, wax on, wax off. Right?
So that was it, all right. And I knew the first day.
I'm sure it's more to it than an hour of just turning on and off a light.
That was exactly what he did. Nothing else. Well, he said, Seán, Last and Solace.
But he would have been throwing in like
No.
a little side.
No, he threw nothing else.
Okay.
This is all he did.
Right.
And another day, then, oh no, it wasn't that, it was next year that he took us to go upstairs, called Susan Sarah, Walter, where are you at? Tommy, who's? Right, Taranus, Taranis, and that was come down again. Walter, Tommy Heath, and we spent an hour at that too.
Brilliant.
So I said, them's two things I'll never forget. That's for sure. And so we spent the week there, and we knew Gleann Cholm Cille was a lot better.
How strict do you think then they were in Gleann Cholm Cille about speaking English?
Oh, very strict.
Would they have told you off?
Oh, aye.
Or was it just a more correction and steering towards speaking in Gaelic?
Well, he was pushing the Gaelic. Yes.
But he wouldn't have told you off for it.
Oh, no, well, he did in a way.
Aye.
He did. You felt he was telling you off.
Aye.
And you knew not to say it again.
Right.
That was it. Now, Buddy's pub was opposite the school.
Aye.
And we went to Buddy's after the class. And this first or second evening, we were there, and Liam come there too, and he heard us, and maybe he spoke here speaking English. Gaelic the whole.
In the bar?
And the bar. So we stopped speaking English. And I remember the boy from near Swathra, and he came one year, and he spoke English. He didn't hear Liam talk. He spoke English after class, and we're getting a photograph taken, and he says, tell Liam in English, Liam, what do you want me to do? We're getting into place, Liam's putting us in place. What do you like me to do? Lower Gaelic the whole. And he stopped speaking English too. Indeed.
So I should say that we went there last year, myself and yourself and my son, and we were minding you effectively. And I was a bit nervous about the lack of Gaelic that I have, because a couple of fuckalugam rin me German or Gaelic in it. I've got a few words, but I've forgotten a fair bit. And they were very understanding and sympathetic, especially with my son. And they're so what I'm saying is, anybody's thinking about going to Gaeltacht and they don't have too much Gaelic, Oideas Gael is definitely worth considering, and I would strongly urge you to listen to those episodes I recorded with Ronan and with Liam Cunningham about Oideas Gael. But yeah, if you only have a couple of fuckle, little problem or be.
Well, they actually take complete beginners. People come from America and England and Europe.
Yeah.
So some of them have absolutely no one. So they have to be a wee bit careful with them. And but they leave speaking Irish. Anybody spends a fortnight in Donegal of Oideas Gael will not leave speaking English. They'll leave speaking Irish. That's for sure. So Francie and myself talked about it, and we said this was the best place we ever had.
Well, you only had two.
I only had to. Well, after a few years, we went down south to Connemara.
Aye.
I'm not too sure where it was at in Connemara, but
County Galway, though.
yeah, down in Connemara, and we did the week there as well as the week in Donegal. I mean, that year I was hooked on it, and I haven't missed a year since.
Aye. 40. This will be your 42nd.
42nd year, I think.
Aye. And they'll be going 43 because they started the year that you went to Downers.
That's right.
Yes. So that was 83. They started.
Liam likes to tell people that John Heron wasn't here the first year, but he's been here every year since.
That's right. How did the one in Connemara compare?
Oh, it was more difficult to understand. And even yet, I have trouble with Connemara Gaelic.
Aye.
I can understand Kerry Gaelic, Cork Gaelic, and any Munster Gaelic.
Aye.
Only Galway. Galway's the toughest one.
Right.
And over the other side, I understand Cúiglein. What do you call that? Munster, Leinster.
Leinster. Yeah.
We went there for the Rocktas one year, Francie and myself, and Liam Clancy was there.
There's not too much of Leinster Gaelic, though, is there?
Oh, there is enough of it.
I thought I was killed out. Shows you how little I know. Carry on.
Oh, it's fairly strong. Oh, it's not strong, but it's there anyway.
But it's resurrected effectively.
And Liam Clancy was there, and the Clancy brothers were there,
right.
And they were singing and playing, and then that played on after the whole thing was over, and then about 12 o'clock, Liam was going home, and he invited us with him. Oh, a couple of dozen of us, I would say there was, and he went to his house, and he started playing, and about 4 o'clock in the morning, he still was playing, and we were still listening. Well, I liked him. Now, at 4 o'clock in the morning, singing unaccompanied, he wasn't that great. You know?
Well, I don't think anybody is at 4 o'clock in the morning.
No. But we enjoyed it all.
What is staying with the host family like?
Oh, the host family is great, because, again, Gleann Cholm Cille taught us that too, that he hooks in with the family. Well, there's an all-speaking family that hooks in with it. Anyway, so they talk to you. We go there for lunch and come back there in the evening for dinner. And although now that changed a couple of years ago, and we we take a packed lunch with us because it's shorter time, and we get the dinner with the family. So that's all yearly too.
Very good. Have you been staying with the same family every year?
Oh no.
Yeah, change it.
I like to change a wee bit of it. But at the beginning, I stayed with Peggy and Brian Byrne. Both of them are dead. Peggy died about, I would say 10 years after we went, and she was a lovely woman, lovely woman, indeed. And she says, she was just so good every way. She helped you during the dinner as well, and helped you all the time. And her...
In what way helped you?
To learn to speak English.
So she'd be teaching you?
She'd be teaching you. But she'd be speaking to you in a way that you'd learn just.
Oh, okay.
And her father, well, from the same house, maybe Geordie, but Geordie says he had no Irish because there's no Irish when he was at school. And that was all right. Brian and Peggy were away one evening, and we were in the group. There was Seamus Brady and the wife, and Brady Collins, and Francie, and me, and a boy from Manchester. He was a hull walker, and he was there too. So we were all sitting around just chatting, trying to do it in Irish, and I don't know what we're talking about. It might have been a wake, and none of us had a word for wake.
So wake as in pre-funeral?
Aye. No, I don't remember myself. Torah is a funeral, and Torah, and that's the trouble. Torah and Galway is a wake. So,
oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Let's see, I'm just Googling here. Word for awake in Irish. Torah, that's what it says here. Is it Fara?
Aye, Feirste.
Aye.
It's you're staying with the person. Feirste. Minding them.
Aye.
And
literally, it means a watch or vigil or looking out.
That's right.
Yes.
So we're all, and we couldn't get a word for it. We hadn't got the word. I spoke to the old man. I just, Corgaelic
wake.
Wake. Feirste.
Right.
Oh, I said, you're the man that didn't have any Irish. I said, don't you speak to us here in English? So we changed some too.
Yeah.
He spoke every night to us. He thought we were professors and teachers and lawyers and top level, and he didn't want to be shown up. But he knew twice as much as we had.
I was asking about the host family.
Yeah.
So I know the story quite well, but maybe you'll share it again about a very important person staying in the same house and doing the dishes.
Oh, after the week in Gleann Cholm Cille, we went up to Funtown and Glenanya, and we stayed with Mary Logue, and Francis stayed too. And
that was every year, not just 1 year.
Oh no, I stayed until she died.
Right.
We went home for lunch, as I say, that time, and we landed home, and there was a black guy from America and a woman. She was white, and they were there too. There was 2 others from America as well. There were about 4 Americans, maybe 5. But the house was full all the time, and
all to learn Gaelic.
And so we took the lunch, and this woman lifted the dishes and went out to wash them. I didn't think anything of it, but the woman from there, that's the Irish president, and she's going to wash dishes. I says, she was a housewife long before she was a president, and she'll be a housewife after she was president. So there's nothing wrong with washing dishes.
Explain who the president was.
The president was Mary McAleese.
And was she the sitting president at that time?
She was, at that time she was. She came the year that she was president. And there was a big row about that, because the course finished on Saturday morning, and with the big Céilís on Friday night, and she went to the Céilís. I danced with her all the time. In fact, the girl that was teaching the dancing, she was from Clondalkin, Dublin, and all the Americans wanted to dance with her, of course.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So she came to us and she says, I want you and Francie, time about to dance the president. It's good enough that she's here. She shouldn't have to get the feet stamped of her. So that's what we did. We danced all the time after that. Oh, she's a good dancer too. Bloody
As noble as the occupation of a housewife is, I think Mary McAleese might also have been a doctor or something.
She was a doctor.
But she wasn't. She wasn't.
She was a professor.
Aye.
So she taught.
I'll ask her. I'm going to meet her very soon.
She taught. So.
Yeah. So, any fun?
Yeah, she was a university professor.
Aye. Any funny memories? And I'm thinking about a window situation. Daniel O'Donnell.
Oh, Daniel O'Donnell's there. Yeah, that's right. He was locked there. But
so what happened that time?
He himself was very, very, very intense about learning the language.
Daniel.
Daniel.
Aye.
He was very good, and he sang for us as well.
Right.
In Gaelic.
All right.
Oh, aye. And well, I think he could sing in Gaelic anyway. He must have Gaelic at school and then give it up.
Yeah.
But he got it back all right. And he was there. And when we were doing the dance own season, they were videoing. There was a camera crew with them as well, you see. And I'm convinced it wasn't Daniel's bottom half that they had at all. The Daniel's top half, but it was somebody else's bottom half. See, you just the camera, so that was
a stunt double.
Aye. And
tell us about the window. Do you remember that story?
I don't remember that.
Maybe it's Liam told me this story, Liam Cunningham, where Daniel, somebody had forgotten the keys, and they had to break into the building, and there was a story where maybe Daniel was breaking in, or maybe it's Daniel told me. Anyway, Daniel was breaking into this building, and then he was laughing about how the police could be coming and arrest them for breaking into a building.
Yeah.
But the story was that the keys were inside the building.
Right, that's it.
Yeah.
No, well, I don't remember it. That's my problem.
Tell me, do you have any other funny memories of the Gaeltacht? Well, obviously you do, but share one.
Well, not really. Mary Logue was a lovely woman too. She died. Then in the evenings, sometimes the housewives or the people of the house came to the college and to the Céilís. So we had that too. I danced Mary Logue too often, and she was a nice dancer. And she had her eldest son was a priest, Father Liam, and he gave up the priesthood. Actually, I think he found out that she had got cancer, and he came home to look after her, and he stayed there all the time. Did very well. Yeah. And if I'm in that area at all, I call with him. Oh, he's a lovely man too.
Did you make friends that you still keep in touch with?
Aye, well, all those people, all those houses, I'm still very friendly with them.
You're talking about the people the hosts themselves.
Yeah, the hosts, yeah.
So you're closer to the hosts nearly than your classmates?
Oh, aye.
Why is that?
Well, I stayed with them and they kept me. And we became friends just. And the two girls, Gallaghers, they played in Art McNally Gaelic band. And actually, Art could do without them. If he had Breeze was a fiddle player. She is as good a fiddle player as I ever heard. And when she played that fiddle, it could talk. It really was, indeed. Breeze played the keyboards. Now, Moya played the keyboard. Moya was a lovely girl, smiling and laughing and carrying on. And Breeze was just, music was so serious with her. That's what.
Are you talking about Moya Brennan here?
Oh, no. Moya Gallagher.
Okay. Oh, Gallagher. Sorry. Aye. But you you knew the Clannad family
Oh, I knew that.
through the Gaeltacht?
Uh-huh.
Tell us about
Well,
that.
we went to Gidor an odd time too, you see, and they were there. And we had times, Margaret me was in that area.
Your wife,
we
your
go to
late wife.
Leo's pub, that was Clannad. And Thursday night was open mic night.
Right.
So if you thought you could play something, he gave you the stage. Oh, it was great altogether.
And did they get up? Or were they the resident band?
Oh, they were in the bar.
Right.
And then Moya would sing a song, and some of the fellas sang a song. Oh, they all sang just, but they worked in the bar as well. He had them working.
Class.
And them and Clannad are actually cousins.
Aye.
Or sorry, them and Mary Francie Mooney and Mrs. Brenner, brother and sister.
We were talking about the Céilís. What were the Céilís like in Gleann Cholm Cille?
Oh, they were great. Oh, yeah.
Were you calling them out? Scarty and Mach?
No, I was dancing.
Why is that?
Because
It's only better.
Liam had a girl came up from Clondalkin.
Right.
And then whenever she finished, there's two brothers now doing it at the minute. They're from Mayo.
Aye.
Colm and Seán, and they're very good too. Very good.
And where did it take place?
It takes place in Hallowura, St Mary's Hall.
Aye. I remember the year that 2 years ago you went to the Gaeltacht and you didn't bring any other footwear. You brought those bloody boots that you have there beside you.
Oh, aye.
Them heavy boots.
Yeah.
And you danced all week in them.
Oh, aye.
And then your legs weren't right for the rest of the year.
That's right. I was sore after. You know Gleann Cholm, you know when you turn left at Betty's pub?
Aye.
If you go on down there 100 yards, the hall's on the left-hand side.
Right, yeah.
So that's, we used it.
But then there was videos I've seen, you were in the bar dancing.
Oh, I would dance in the bar, surely. I mean, we went after the class was finished, or after the evening was finished, there was a talk or a session of music.
In the hall,
in
the school.
In the school.
Aye.
And then went back to the pub for an hour. And then Colm and Seán got us up to dance then. Dance in the bar. Oh, it was good.
Did you improve your Irish much whenever you were there?
Oh, definitely.
I think this is more geared towards people who have gone to the Gaeltacht once or twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in terms of you learning your Gaelic there, how much would it improve? Because I remember you always told me as we were growing up that you were thinking in Irish and you were dreaming Irish.
Yeah.
So that tells me that you're self-learning.
Yeah.
And you're going over old material, reinforcing it. And I'm just wondering, whenever you went to the Gaeltacht, did you feel a step upwards?
I did, yeah.
Aye. And did you have that step upwards throughout the year elsewhere?
Oh, yeah.
Where were they?
After I came home, just everywhere.
But where did you go for lessons or?
No, I never went for lessons, no.
So how would you feel those steps up?
Well, a few years ago, Conor Murray in Dipperstown, he took classes up at Straw.
Right.
And he invited me to them, so I went to them too. So that helped a wee bit too.
And were you a student or a teacher?
A student.
Yeah. But you did teach Gaelic?
Well, only to youngsters. And it was only...
Where was that at?
Well, I taught in Straw actually a wee while, but it's only for a wee while. I didn't get great fun out of that at all.
You prefer to be a student?
Oh,
because you can be more mischievous?
I want to learn. That was the thing.
So, was that because you had to prepare for lessons? What did you not enjoy about teaching? Did you feel the pressure?
No, I didn't feel pressure, no.
Did you have to prepare material?
Oh, no, I never prepared anything.
So where was...
I just sat and chatted to them. And
why was that not as enjoyable? You felt that you weren't learning as much?
I wasn't learning anything.
Okay.
I don't think. Mary Rose myself went to Derry last week to see Shannon, and I had up to get a drink from the bar, and I saw this woman standing at the bar too, and I had a fair idea, I knew her. I didn't know who she was, And I said, "Are you from Donegal?" "No," she's very close. She said, "I'm from Claudia." I said, "Oh, that's even better." I said, I must know you then. And she says, "Who?" I said, "John Heron." Well, she just gave me a big hug. Oh, a really big hug. And she says, "I'm Brown. Gertrude Brown." So what a great chat.
And did you know her?
Oh, I knew her, surely. I taught her dancing.
Right.
She was one of the group.
In Cumber House?
In the Cumber House. Oh, she was very good. I was, because of her or somebody like her, that I discovered that if you have music, you can learn airs easily. Gertrude came, her sister only came, she didn't come on a regular basis, but her sister was a good singer and a good musician. And she always passed us. The night she would come, 3 nights she'd overtake her that night and be better than us when we were leaving it. So that's how
So you got 2 hugs that night?
That's right.
Shannon gave you a hug?
Yeah.
That was nice. Sharon, just for transparency, Sharon, I told her that my father was going to go to see him that night, and then she calls out, "This is for John and Mary Rose." My father was there with his friend, and then afterwards, you tell the story.
Afterwards, I said I would like to buy a CD.
Aye.
So they said that the CDs would be for sale in the foyer. So there were 2 different foyers, so I didn't know. But we were up the top foyer, and lucky enough she was there. So I went over and I said, "Take a CD, 2 CDs, a double and a single." And she says, "And who will I say this is to?" I said, "John and Mary Rose." "Oh, Christ." And she just gave me a big hug.
Aye. So whenever I said that my father was coming to see you, she sent me a voice message straight away saying, "I'm going to do a shout out to him. Will you write," and she said to her roadie, "Will you write that down in the set list to give him a shout out?" So very, very kind of her. I didn't ask her.
Oh, I was really shocked.
Aye, very nice of her. The last question here in the list, but I've got another question in my head. What comes to your mind whenever someone mentions the Gaeltacht?
It's good times.
Why? Or what part of it that makes the good times for you?
The whole journey is so good.
Journey as in the whole week, or the
whole week,
or the whole lifetime of learning Irish?
Well, the whole lifetime there. It's all just a positive.
What does it give you?
It just gave me Gaelic language.
Is it important to stress, maybe, that your gra for the Irish language doesn't come from a political place? Or does it?
Definitely not. In fact, I can tell you a story about that too. When we went to Rossgill, there was a fellow there, Leslie Burnett, from Downpatrick. Not Downpatrick, Castlewell. And we're there, and that was okay. Father Jack said Mass at 1 o'clock every day. So the first day he did it, Leslie sat down the hall. He didn't join in. So I found out that he was Protestant. And then one day it was really bucketing. And Leslie...
Raining hard.
Leslie walked out to the rain. And I walked out and asked mine, "Come on back in, Nick. This will not do you any harm." No, he said, "I'm all right, and I am. Tammy Kerker my Tammy." And he was pretty sure about that. So I told him then afterwards, I go to Gleann Cholm Cille and Liam Cunningham and Joe Watson. Joe Watson was born a Presbyterian, and he's now Baha'i faith. And he's reared the family in Baha'i, and they have their Baha'i Bible in Gaelic. I'd say they're not to be many of them about it, but he has it anyway. When I stayed with in Funtown, stayed with Michael Doherty's mother, Annie Orr. She was Banrian the Gaeltacht Lar, the queen of the Central Gaeltacht. And she told me, chatting one day, she talked to you in Irish, or she didn't. She has the DVD, she has the tape out, and she started telling the story, and she set the tape out there and tell the story. Then she go to another store and she left the day party and she was that maybe 4 or 5 days. That met I go to a wee half cup. It was too bloody strong. It was like tarmac, actually. And that was Michael's mother. And she showed us how to churn and make butter. And she got another man to show us how to make creels, stick the creels in the sticks and then weave through it, weave in the creel, you know, turf creel, a basket, you know.
Aye.
She brought him there too. Oh, she was full of all that sort of thing.
What's a conversation you've had with somebody where you can trace back the earliest Gaeltacht that you can think of?
It would be Roskill.
So 83? There was no Gaeltacht before then?
No.
Wow. You're talking about Donegal, obviously.
Yeah.
So there could have been down south.
Oh no, we were going to Donegal when it went south. That was for our first Gaeltacht.
So there's no Gaeltacht in Connemara or anything?
No.
So is Connemara's all is Jack and Jack? It's in the house?
Aye.
Aye. And then Donegal would have been the same. Aye. Wow. I always thought that it was much earlier.
Liam Cunningham doesn't know what he has done for the Irish language. Liam Cunningham, it's now Ronan runs it now, and I was afraid Liam wouldn't release the reins at all. I was afraid Liam would carry on till he couldn't carry on, and that would be a bad job. But Liam wants it to keep coming after him.
So, and Siobhan's running it as well with it?
Yeah, Siobhan's very good.
Garjean's doing a job, isn't it?
Actually, Seán, when he went to the Gaeltacht, he stayed with Seán's and Siobhan's house.
Right. Seán, my brother, yeah. I would like to, but while I'm in ish, waar vi me kent as Berla, but while I'm kent as Gaeilge, agus, but while I'm a scale bug as Gaeilge, led the hall.
Well, you'll scale or be young for you.
Well, just tell me a story then, in Irish.
I don't have one.
No, maybe a memory then. What about Father O'Dwyer?
Oh, aye.
Talk to me about him in Irish.
Well, Hullamy Scale for entire O'Dwyer, Liam Cunningham, Dirche, Gurrincha Lan Uber and Shan, Lan Uber, and Hanshire just, you know, Iske Lafayette, that should be so. Be scheme, Iske, who she could hear realtors, agus Trudge lesson realtors, so yeah, first cad agus arigat the Iske file, so Rann and Iske heart or Gleann Cholm Cille, agus Bashan and fire Heron over. So
tell me that in English now.
Well, he said that whenever he moved to Gleann Cholm Cille, there was no running water, no piped water anywhere. So he went to the government and bribed them into giving him permission and money to do the thing. And he started a nutting factory as well. Actually, the hall was a nutting factory. And he started that, and I forgot about it in Gaelic now. And that's why now they've running water all over Gleann Cholm Cille. He was a man for that.
So that's a fascinating story. Liam Cunningham, my conversation with him, he spent a good 20 minutes talking about Father O'Dwyer. And the importance that he had on that area and the influence. Also working in tandem with Liam's father. To
and his mother too. His mother, she was like Liam. Just she spoke to you all the time, Gaelic.
Aye. So that's a fascinating episode. I'll put a link to it in the notes. 42 years this year for you.
Yeah.
Assuming you're still around.
I'm sure it's all right.
We didn't think you would be at the start of the year.
Certainly didn't. Never thought I'd reach it. I mean, 87 is a wild age, you know.
Aye.
It's a wild age.
Hopefully I'll find out.
Hopefully. I know next month anyway.
Aye. So, what are you looking forward to the most by going there this year?
Going there.
Aye.
Just meeting the people and doing Gaelic.
You're not. Mary McAleese still goes there.
Oh, I go every year.
You weren't in our class last year.
Oh, I was telling you about that there. That the big thing had the Irish Times on the Saturday morning. Where is our president when the Aga Khan Cup needs to be presented in the bogs of Donegal? So she got on to them and she spent half an hour on the phone to them at least, telling them that she had already notified everybody that she was taking her holidays that week. And she said, I'm entitled to my holidays and this is where I spend it. It meant me who you like to spend it, but I spent it there. And the other thing about it was, she had the heavies with her too, did she?
There was security, yeah.
Security. And there was, up above, behind the college, there were 3 houses. She got the middle house and the heavies on both sides. So that left it all right. Although when we went to Inisheer, yeah. We were at Inisheer and she was there. Now it wasn't a course, we were just out there and she was there. And I got a chat with her and all that there. And in the evening we met in the pub and she told the heavies to disappear. She was all right. It was sort of assumed that the boatmen only took people out that were out for a holiday. But it worked out that there was somebody from a reporter and he reported in his paper that where were the heavies when Mary was in the pub. They were way home. She had a night off. So she gave them a touch too. Oh, she doesn't suffer from slightly.
Well, Mary, if you're listening, don't feel too bad about not being around for the cup because I turned down Jerry Adams this year, an interview with him, because I'm taking this fella to the Gaeltacht. Some things are just more important. Okay, we'll wrap it up there. Unless is there anything that you'd like to say that you haven't said already?
Oh, well, there was one story. Mary Cholm, she's a cousin as well of those singers. And there was some sort of a night in Belfast down at the Waterford. I don't know what was on it, but Margaret and me went till Tommy and we went up to Dean's for a meal. And Mary was there and a man with her. And we were at the meal and I put my hand in my pocket, I had no money but the card. And I went to the desk and I told them I had to go down the street. So I went down the street and the card wouldn't work.
Oh.
So, but I had a £20 in my pocket. So I went back up again and asked Margaret. She started searching her bag and over here. So we just had enough to do. But at this stage, I had parked the car and I was going to have to pay for it too.
Right.
Hadn't a penny. And Mara must have seen that I was flustered a bit. And she came up. I said, no, I said, do you need money? Like, I can give you money. Oh, I said, no, sure, I might never see you again. Oh, I'll see you again. So I thought it was very nice to do that.
So she gave you a few quid for the car?
No, I didn't. I said, I didn't tell her about the car. When the concert was over, we came back to the car and there was a man standing at the box. And
how long before that there? Did she give you money then?
No, I did.
Okay, but you were turning her down.
She was forcing it on me.
Oh,
and I said, no way, I'm taking money. And we came back to the car and there was a man standing with a ticket on, putting the money in. I said, how much is it? It's £2. It's very cheap. I said, God, that's more than I have. He gave me £2. He was a complete stranger. Never seen me in his life before.
You could be listening, hopefully. Thank you.
It had to be someone Irish. If Mary Cholm was there. And she was like Katrina, very thin. She was now in her 40s, I think. She's a professor now, I think, as well. But that stage, she was about Katrina's age were a year or two older, and when she sang, you could see the front and the back just clapping at her. I thought she was really marvellous, and she was a fantastic singer too.
What's your advice for anybody who's thinking about, because you started learning Gaelic. Oh, this is a fascinating story. Tell us about that. Tell us about how you first started learning Gaelic, or why.
Well, when I was at primary school, Nora O'Kane.
Oh, I'm thinking about the time you're on holidays. But I mean, carry on.
Oh, I'll tell that to you one.
Yeah.
Right, when the holidays first, right. When we were on holidays, you were all playing around, and you did not have to play with. And this boy came over with his toys and a football.
Yeah, we kid, another kid, just it was on the beach or something.
At the beach.
Aye.
And they started playing with it. So the father came over near lunchtime. They were going for the lunch, and I thanked him very much for the boy playing lunch. Oh, he says, no, he says, and he spoke English with a German accent. I knew it was German, like, and he said, I'm from Germany. And I just can't thank you enough. It just solved the whole problem for the morning. And I always says, no, I'm German. I come from Germany. He's German too, but he speaks English. And I says, I'm Irish. Oh, he says, to Gleann Cholm. Oh, I said, I'm very sorry, I don't speak Irish. I speak English only. And he left with the youngster's hand and all the toys and all that. And I said that spot, I stood in that spot, and I said, next fucking German that talks to me in Irish, I'll bloody answer him. And I was determined that day to go home and learn Gaelic. And that's what I did.
So you're ashamed into it?
Oh, ashamed into it, yeah.
That the German had Irish and you didn't?
Yeah.
Aye.
What was that?
You're talking about whenever you're at school or something?
Oh, well, when I was at school, Nora O'Kane, where's the shops at? That was Nora O'Kane's house. Her sister was a midwife. Nora didn't have a job, but she taught Irish. She had like Seán Gallagher, she taught for the love of it. And she actually died teaching it in the hall down there. She dropped dead in the hall, teaching Irish.
Cool.
Oh, I'm very sorry about her. She was a lovely woman. And so she talked us, and she did wee plays as well, in Irish or in English. If you hadn't enough Irish, you did English. That was good enough.
So you were an adult whenever you had that conversation with the German in Ascalga, and you. What's your advice to anybody who's an adult who maybe doesn't have that much Irish and thinks, oh, sure, I could never learn a language, but would like to?
Yeah. If you can talk, you can learn Irish. But if you work about that, it's so much better. If you have an ear for music, it's so much easier. And I tell anybody, there's nobody that couldn't learn Irish. Nobody, no matter who they were.
And you're talking about the things that you need to learn a language. The passion.
Passion.
The intelligence.
Intelligence is not really that important.
Aye, but you said that you used to have a line. You need the passion, the commitment, and the intelligence of a 2-year-old.
Aye, that's right. That's what I always said. That's the language of a 2-year-old that had no language, because there's a 2-year-old he can't speak at all, and a 3-year-old he talks language. So if you were somewhere, actually Annie War is an example of that. Her son Michael and daughter, I don't know what do you call the daughter now. Anyway, they were adopted by Annie War whenever they were a year or two old, and within 6 months they didn't have a word of English.
And what was their original language?
English.
Oh, they were adopted and they learned Irish.
Well, Annie spoke to them all the time.
Wow.
And
So
Michael was the headmaster in Funtown.
aye. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, I don't think so.
Aye. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up there. I've got to go to Dublin and
Yeah.
see Metallica tomorrow night, or the night after. Seán Heron, Daddy, John Heron, Gurra May Agat, thank you very much.
Tafalt you wrote. Hammer me.
There we go. Thank you for listening. If you know someone who might value this conversation, please feel free to pass it on. The Ireland podcast is intended as a record of long-form conversations like this, and if you would like to support the continuation of the work, there is a link in the notes. Take care.